Welcome everyone again. Topic today, crossing the Andes, our trip to Argentina and Chile happening at the end of March of next year. A couple of words, first of all, about Wheel and Anchor for those of you who are new. We started this community about 5 years ago, so just a little bit before the pandemic. After 30 years of being around travel and organizing trips for Canadians to all parts of the world, I came to a number of different conclusions, which were the preface to the founding of Wheel and Anchor, which is, first of all, when people who are like-minded, and I say specifically Canadians, and we are almost exclusively Canadian. We have a small handful of people from other countries who are part of our community, but we have a certain way of looking at the world and traveling the world. And so, when you travel, it's like traveling with a bunch of friends. I mean, and that's kind of how we relate to our other members of Wheel and Anchor. And it's a different experience than if you just join a tour group. That's what we're all about. The motto is bringing travelers together, and the goal is, oops, we missed a slide. It's not in here. The goal, normally we have a slide for you, is to become well-traveled and well-connected. And part of how we accomplish that is obviously, first of all, by being like-minded people and having that similar view of the world. But we also offer trips that are a little bit slowed down. So, if you would normally spend 2 nights in a place, we like to spend 3 or 4 nights in a place. And by, this idea of slow travel is again, one of the hallmarks of a Wheel and Anchor adventure. And that just allows you time to connect with the people that you meet along the way, both in the country and your fellow members. So that's just a little bit about the philosophy of Wheel and Anchor. We are a small but growing organization, and thrilled to deliver all kinds of amazing trips. So without further ado, let's get right into the meat and potatoes today. And that's an apt analogy for Argentina, lots of meat. I'm the founder of Wheel and Anchor, and I'm joined today by Barb, one of our trip specialist team, who will be there to answer any questions you have and get you signed up for any of the trips that you are interested in. And our special guest today, Todd K. Burgard, on the screen there. Todd is been a host of a few of our adventures with Wheel and Anchor, and including the 2023 program to Argentina and Chile. And so he's going to share some of the insights and some of the highlights that our group experienced from this year's trip. Welcome, Todd.
Thank you.
Okay, so our plan, as usual, is to take our interested members all about Argentina and Chile, and with myself and particularly Todd as your guide, we're going to do our little digital tour through Argentina and Chile, where we're heading in March and April of next year, starting with, of course, as always, the map of the region. We are focused in the central part of Argentina and Chile. This is where most of the action is, although I could argue myself on that point, because you could spend weeks exploring the country from north to south. So consider this like the highlights trip. If you haven't been there before, it may make you want to go back. We're going to start our trip in Buenos Aires, which you access typically by flying, depending on where you're coming from in Canada. You can fly either via Sao Paulo, Sao Paulo, Brazil. Air Canada has a connection out of Toronto there, or there's also connections from through Panama City, for example, on Copa Airlines into Buenos Aires, or you can fly via the US, and there's a number of different ways to get there. So it's more or less the same time zone. Depending on the time of the year. We begin Buenos Aires, an amazing capital city of Argentina. We'll share a little bit about that with you in a moment. A side trip. I want to mention we're offering this year a pre-trip to Iguazu Falls, which sits way up in the northeastern part of Argentina. Iguazu Falls and the Iguazu River actually form the border between Argentina and Brazil, and also Argentina and Paraguay as well. And again, I'll be getting into the details there. So a couple of nights in Iguazu for those that wish, then Buenos Aires for 5 nights. We're going to explore Colonia del Sacramento across the Rio de la Plata in Uruguay. the Tigre Delta. We're going to see some things that a lot of people don't get to see in Buenos Aires. We're then going to fly across the country to the west over to Mendoza in the foothills of the Andes, which is, of course, you'll be familiar from many wine bottles that you've perhaps enjoyed. That is the heart of Argentina's wine country. So we're going to explore this interesting city and then cross overland over the Andes Mountains, heading into Santiago, the capital of Chile, where we're going to spend a few nights and also visiting the beautiful UNESCO port city of Valparaiso and the beach town of Viña del Mar. So that is the overview of our program. And now with Todd's help, we're going to go into the day by day. Let me share with you a few things about Iguazu Falls. I've been blessed to have gone there a couple of times. This is, and I've been to a lot of waterfalls around the world, this is the best one. It really is. It's in terms of waterfall. I've been to Victoria Falls in South Africa. I've been to Angel Falls, the highest in the world in Venezuela, and I've been to, well, Niagara Falls. We've all been there. But in terms of the beauty of this waterfall, the multiple cataracts, it is absolutely incredible. So if you are at all interested in waterfalls, this has to be on the top of your list. We fly from Buenos Aires up to Puerto Iguazu, which is the town on the Argentinian side. That's where we're going to be staying for a couple of nights in order to take in these amazing waterfalls. Now, the interesting thing is about Iguazu, as I say, it straddles the border. So you see it both from the Brazilian side and from the Argentinian side. And of course, as with any situation, both sides think their side is the better one in terms of beholding the falls. I can tell you my opinion. They are both great. The Argentinian side is the better side. That's part of the reason why we're staying there. But the Brazilian side is still pretty spectacular. And since I was there, and the last time I was there is the better part of 10 years ago, they have made quite a number of improvements to the visitor facilities. So we will cross over into Brazil. I make a side note on that, which is that at the moment, Brazil has waived the visa requirement for Canadian travelers. This was in place up until a couple of years ago, and then during COVID, they eliminated it. As of this moment, there's no visa required to get into Brazil. They're talking about putting it back, partly because we put a visa on Brazilians coming to Canada, so it's a reciprocity thing. So that's the only hook in the matter, which only means that you have to pay for the visa fee, which is not the end of the world. Still worth it, because, as I say, from the Brazilian side, what I remember in particular is one set of waterfalls where these birds would fly through the waterfall because they had their nests in behind. It's the most amazing thing. In fact, I have a picture on my wall that I took of this whole thing about birds flying through the waterfall. Very, very cool to see it on the Brazilian side. So we'll spend a day on the Brazilian side, or half a day on the Brazilian side. We'll come back over and sleep, of course, in Puerto Iguazu. And then we'll spend the other side on the Iguazu, on the Argentinian side. And here you have a whole bunch of different walkways and trails. So depending on how active you are, how adventurous you are, there's easy ways to go and behold the falls from different locations. And there's also longer paths. The highlight is about a 1,200 meter, about a 1.2 kilometer pathway to the so-called Devil's Throat, which is like this, it's almost a circular waterfall where the falls form like it's almost completely round in the water. It is the most spectacular thing as far as waterfalls goes. And as I say, there's numerous cataracts all around, set amongst the jungle. Of course, we're up in the very north of Argentina here, so the climate is quite different. It's tropical. You're in a subtropical zone, so the weather is always warm and a little bit humid. But yeah, these falls are really amazing, and we have a fantastic suite hotel that we've picked up there that we're offering to our members. So it's one of the, I recommend everything, of course, but even not being biased, I do think a trip to Iguazu Falls is well worth it. So that will be the pre-trip, and then of course we will start our trip in Argentina, or the main part of our adventure here in Buenos Aires, which, as I mentioned before, you can reach from a number of different routes. And when you fly into Buenos Aires already, you get a sense of this massive city. I mean, it has a population of over 10 million people. And it sits, of course, as I mentioned, on the Rio de la Plata, which when you look at it, looks like a giant lake or the sea, but it is in fact the mouth of the river of Rio de la Plata. And so we take you in and whisk you into Recoleta. Buenos Aires is famous for its neighborhoods. So it's kind of like a little bit like New York that way. It's like, oh, you're from Recoleta, or you're from Hollywood. They have a neighborhood called Hollywood, or you're from San Telmo, the home of tango. So Recoleta is one of the ones that's very close to downtown. And Todd, I mean, tell me, what was your first impressions when you landed in Buenos Aires?
Well, at first I thought we're in Europe. It was so European. The architecture, they haven't had a lot of horrible earthquakes there, so a lot of the buildings are still intact. All these beautiful historic facades are there. They're well maintained. It was kind of shocking. I wasn't expecting that exactly. From what I understood, it was a little European flair, but I didn't realize it would be that present. The people were super friendly, so that was also a little bit different from Europe, I guess, as well, because they were a little friendlier there than some places in Europe can be. It was just beautiful. We had stellar weather right from the beginning, so we never had any issue. It was beautiful. Temper, it wasn't overly hot. Speaking to Recoleta, that was such a cool neighborhood, very artistic. The colors, it was just, you felt the energy from that area, and the people it was very vibrant, and it had it grabs you right away, and it kind of just pulls you in, and the romance of that city came alive quite quickly for us. So yeah, it was beautiful.
I always say it's one of my favorite cities to visit in the world. I never pass up a chance to go to Buenos Aires. We are going to spend obviously 5 nights here. So this gives you time to see the city itself, have time on your own to roam around. It is a big city. And I know the question is always, people ask about safety in American cities. And I don't know about you, Todd, what your experience was, but I found it to be, I did not have any problems when I was in Buenos Aires. I walked around downtown pedestrian streets in the middle of the night without any problem. What was your sense of Buenos Aires, having been there just a couple of months ago?
So COVID has done a number on that city. It has had a little bit of an effect, but for the most part, none of the group felt unsafe anywhere we went. We were out mostly during the day or just for dinners. The area that we stayed in with the hotel was very nice, so it wasn't in a questionable area whatsoever. There are police all over the place there, so that's probably one of the safer cities I've felt. Like I didn't feel that there was eyes on us or anything like that. It wasn't any of that creepy experience or whatever that some cities can have. No, it was free, it was open, people were friendly, people in the restaurants, the shops, everybody was very welcoming. I think they were really happy to see tourists again, so I think that was the thing too. So it was nice, it was good. I didn't feel unsafe there.
Exactly. And you can roam around, and the only thing you have to be a bit mindful of in Buenos Aires are the taxis, because a lot of the taxis are not sort of official, or they're they're a little bit, they pull a little bit of a scam, but for the most part, it's not a problem. It's frankly a great city to visit, and you're going to see all the major sites. This picture here is on the Plaza de Mayo, which is the presidential palace, which is actually behind us in this picture. The Casa Rosada, the pink presidential palace. And you just look at this picture and you get a sense. It's like you could close your eyes and this could be in Madrid or in Paris. And that's kind of the sense of it. You're going to go through San Telmo, as I mentioned as well, the home of the tango. And I think one of the evenings there we visited a tango show, but I'll go right into it because there's so many different aspects to the city. Here you see the famous obelisk in the middle of one of the widest boulevards in the world, the Avenue of the 14th of July. It's incredible. On the day that you went around sightseeing, is there anything that sticks out in your mind, Todd, that our members felt was particularly interesting or impressive?
The cemetery we visited was unbelievable. That was something else. Nobody had ever been in a cemetery like that. These tiny little, it was unbelievable. I don't even want to spoil it, but you get to see Eva Perón's her mausoleum, I guess is the way to put it. So it was something we never expected. It was very, very cool, very unique. we did the tour, but going back to Recoleta, because that stuck out for me like greatly. That was an incredible day there, and I wish we had a little more time, and we did have the free time. I opted to do something else in the free time, but you can always go back and visit these little charming spots because you do have enough time to do that. And just going back to the cab experience, I had a wonderful cab experience, 2 of them there. Like I had no issues, so they were great. The guys actually helped me out tremendously, so it was yeah, my experiences were fine there. So.
Yeah, exactly. And for the most part, I also never had an issue there. I just heard,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, I mean, there's
it's
always
like
the stories. Yeah.
big city. You have to take care. So
Yeah.
as you said, we'll spend some time sightseeing, obviously, with our guide, and but at the same time, exploring the city and walking around on your own. And a lot of the downtown, it's all walkable. They've got amazing pedestrian streets, Florida and Cajao, and also a wonderful rejuvenated, a gentrified port district called Puerto Madero, where they have some fantastic restaurants. Obviously, Argentina famous for its beef, and so you can't go and not go out for steak at least once.
Yeah, that's the key. That's for sure. That is some of the best meat I've ever had. So if you're a vegetarian, they do have options, but it is a meat lover's paradise there for sure.
It's a good thing to note. We make a side trip while we're there over across the Rio de la Plata by taking a hydrofoil to Colonia del Sacramento, and I see the picture that we have here is actually the Museum of the Fine Arts Museum, so we got the wrong picture in there. Tell us, I mean, you were telling me just before that you thought that Colonia del Sacramento in Uruguay was one of the highlights.
It was. We got there after the boat trip, which was very unique, crossing this massive river, which you wouldn't realize it's a river. But yeah, we got across and we met. It's very charming, very quaint. There was very few people around. The UNESCO heritage site that was the main part of the old town was extremely well preserved. We had matcha tea. We sat down at this cafe on the corner. And while we were sitting there, within 30 minutes, an entire film set grew up around us, and they were filming with this famous Argentinian actress named Mirta. And so they said, "Don't move. You're going to be in the shots. We're not going to get your faces, but we want you sitting at this cafe." So there was 4 of us that actually were in this movie. So we're all excited because they were shooting all around us. It was a magical day, and just beautiful people there, just wonderful, just super relaxed. The pace was beautiful, and everything was it was the right day. It really was. And we visited the Coliseum that's there as well. I don't want to ruin that for everybody, but that was a very cool little highlight as well. Unexpected, very unexpected to see that there. So the history is very interesting. It's very unique. That it was definitely one of the highlights. I could have spent a night there for sure. I've gone back and spent a few days. It was really quite charming. So
yeah, and it's we know relatively little about Uruguay in Canada, but I mean it's known in South America as being the Switzerland of South America. It's one of the fairest countries as far as wealth distribution and so on and so forth. And so just to go and get a taste of it in a day, really makes the trip. And again, why we wanted to include this in the program. Of course, a free day in Buenos Aires with lots of ideas, and so. What did you guys get up to on the free day? I mean, I imagine people went in all different directions, but
everyone kind of splintered. A lot went shopping because we were in an area that had some good shopping, lots of beautiful linens and stuff like that type of stuff, fabrics that were made there. There was some that went back to the graveyard because they wanted to see more of it because it was so interesting. A couple went to the museum. Yeah, everybody kind of did their own thing that day, and then we met up at the tango show in the evening, which was unbelievable. So if you like dancing, it's something to see, that's for sure. It was very cool.
Argentinian tango is, as far as dance is concerned, the tango has to be one of the most compelling to look at. And so you can't go to Argentina without experiencing a tango show. Did you have dinner there as well?
We did, and it was one of the better meals at that place too. It was really well done, just beautiful. And I just can't believe those girls can kick like that. Oh my God. The chiropractic industry must be great down there, because that was something to see. The moves.
Tango is really incredible. Again, another thing that we included, because this is a part of Buenos Aires that I personally always love to visit, is heading a little bit upriver to the delta of the Parana River, which is what flows into the so-called Rio de la Plata, this giant body of water that separates Buenos Aires from Uruguay. And so up in Tigre, I think you guys went for a little bit of a boat cruise, and
we went for a boat cruise through the islands, and then we had lunch at a restaurant on one of the islands. It was one of the coolest things. This is being on that boat and seeing how that whole ecosystem functions there, with the grocery store boats that come to the docks for their people that live there, and they show up on the boat and it's like literally a grocery store, and they go shopping, and then it moves on to the next dock, and just the way it all functions. And the river was quite high at that point too, so it was nice and lush, and everything was green and it's very verdant, and it was a hot day that day. I remember that too. So we were sitting on the boat, and it was just very casual and relaxed, and it was just magical. This part that I didn't know about Tigre at all. I had never heard of it before we've been there, and then after being there, everybody was mesmerized by that. It was unexpected to have that experience and seeing all those people living out there. It was amazing.
But it's off the beaten track for most travelers, because most tourists will not make their way out there. But I have amazing memories of, as you say, seeing this ecosystem, this community of houses, this that all exists amongst this archipelago of islands. It's really, really amazing. So no sooner that we get to Buenos Aires and we already make our way to the next stop over to Mendoza. So we'll fly from the domestic airport of Buenos Aires, George Newbery, and we'll take the flight to the heartland of Argentinian wine, Mendoza, where we will land and find another really quite amazing city. I remember all the trees.
It's the same trees they have along the river in Rome. It's that same tree. I can't remember the name of it, but it's the same one. And when we got to Mendoza, talk about a different pace. It was all of a sudden everything just slowed, and it was much more it was charming, it was calm, very few people around. And then we started touring the wineries, and that was absolutely unbelievable. Some of these Malbecs and some of the wineries that you're going to visit, they stand out. You will remember them for the rest of your life, that's for sure. It was we made empanadas at one of them. We made baked bread in the outdoor ovens. It was experientially, we had such a good day. And when you start with a little wine at 10:30 in the morning, the day tends to go all right. So yeah, it was very nice.
We'll see some of the cultural highlights of Mendoza as well, right?
Oh, right, the cultural highlights, yes.
It is, let's face it. But I think that it's interesting for even those who don't partake in wine or alcohol, because as you say, there's such a culinary aspect of it as well. It's not just about the wine. There's the empanadas and the parrillada, the Argentinian barbecue, and all these other different aspects that fit into it.
They're so passionate about the food. Like it's very European in that sense. It's just part of their DNA, and it's part of their whole vernacular, the food and the experience of that. So that's cultural.
It's cultural for sure. And this is the thing. It's like we don't automatically think about food when we think about Argentina. Maybe we think about Argentinian beef or something like that. But as you say, it is really part of their culture. And so you touched on it already. Mendoza is one of the great wine capitals. And of course, like so many other wine regions, the vast majority of Argentinian wine does not come anywhere near Canada. And so, we get sort of the mass produced ones that in Ontario, the LCBO or the liquor store in BC that they are willing to import. But other than that, you get to see a whole swath of incredible wines, also at a fraction of the price of what we pay at home. Really, this is, as you say, it's pretty an amazing experience.
Well, and seeing these production facilities was absolutely amazing to see that. Like we went to the one that's owned by LMVH, and Louis Vuitton owns that one. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head now, but that was like spectacular. They explained all the new ways they're trying to age wine in cement barrels now that are lined with ceramics, because they've got different ways of going about it now. So they're trying to be a little bit more eco-conscious towards cutting down all the oak trees, and just the changes that they're making within the industry. And what we got to see was very educational as well. even if you don't drink, it's quite something to see how that they pull this all off, and
Exactly.
that's on such a scale.
It's a whole industry, and again, they're really at the cutting edge of, how the wine industry is evolving. Talking about food, you guys did a bit of a cooking experience down there.
Oh wow, yes, and it was outdoors. So we were at the one winery, and they started in the morning with starting the charcoal briquettes. They use old vines to get the charcoal briquettes, and then they put them down into this oven where we then made our empanadas, which we put into the outdoor oven, cooked those. We made bread as well, so that was baked in the outdoor oven. Then they came out with everything, and we met this woman named Chacha who won the Empanada of the World Award or something like that. So she was quite famous, and everybody was, we got all our photos with Chacha. She was quite the character. And we had a wonderful lunch there with far too many courses, which was spectacular. And the cheeses, and then we went on olive oil tasting, and then it was a culinary day, and everybody, by the time we got back, we all had our loaves of bread and our empanadas with us, and it was very cool. Yeah, we was eating them in the hotel at night
as a picnic the next day on the way to Chile. Is
exactly what we did. So we took them on the bus down that road, 26 turns down the mountain. So that's a long day, but it was one of the most interesting days visually that I've ever had. It was like, it's quite a trek, and going through those mountain ranges, it is spectacular. We have a few stops in there as well. You have to stop at the border. There's a stop in this old little mining town. Just really, really cool, interesting. You're in this high altitude, so it's different. There's no vegetation. It's very desert-like, and coming back down on the other side of the mountains was one of the cool. That was so fun. Felt like Mario Andretti, but you go really slow, but with the curves and the meander down that mountain. It was very interesting. Feat of engineering.
Yeah, indeed. And the Andes are a very different mountain range than the Rockies, as you say, because I recall as well, it's all barren. These incredible mountains that you see like naked. There's
not a tree.
That is not a tree in sight. And so it makes it even more majestic. And that's why this is one of these mountain crossings. It's just worth doing. As Todd says, it's a long day, but you're just mesmerized the whole time.
The whole time, everyone's mouth was just like a gap, just like, wow, what are we seeing? It was very cool.
It's pretty spectacular. And then we arrive into Santiago, the capital of Chile, and it's a very different city to Buenos Aires, right?
It's a lot newer. There's a much newer energy to it. Successive earthquakes back in the day have kind of changed the whole look of the city too, because it's very modern looking as well. Skyscrapers, the whole deal. Colorful city. There's an absolute charm there, that's for sure. Different than Buenos Aires. It's almost like comparing night and day. You can't really do it. They're very, very different cities, so your experience is going to be different. Our day trips outside of Santiago were fantastic to Valparaiso and Viña del Mar. That was a wonderful day, and you get to see a whole other colorful experience of that area. Fish market was very cool too. That was actually beautiful. Same person designed the Eiffel Tower that designed that market, so it was kind of cool to see that architecture and in the middle of there. So yeah, the food was good. Chile has got a lot of great food. It's close to Peru, which is the culinary capital of South America, and so they're very influenced by that there as well. So it's very nice.
And you get, again, a diversity of food. Again, you're not, in Santiago, you're not far from the coast, so hence the fish market. You get an influence of seafood and so on. And the city itself, of course, sits right up against the Andes, so it's in a little bit of a cauldron, almost, as it were, which is both a good thing and a bad thing from a weather standpoint. It can suffer from more air pollution because it gets sort of trapped in Santiago. How did you find it when you were there? It was okay?
From what the guide told us, they were having good days. So it was pretty, you could see the mountains. So she said some days you can't even see the mountains, it's so bad, but we could see them the whole time. So we had good weather, and it was maybe 22, 23 degrees, so it wasn't overly hot. There is a lot of history there. We did a lot of walking around the center. We visited the cathedral, a couple museums. The Pre-Columbian Art Museum was very, very cool. Like, that was, I've never seen art like that, so that was really nice. Most of the museums in Canada don't have any of that, or if they do, it's very little. So it was great. It was a private museum, and they did a really good job on that. Like, it was quite well done. So yeah, we had a great day. And then Valparaiso and Viña del Mar, that was a day trip out. It's very unique. Another UNESCO heritage site in the center there. Those buildings, there is a lot of history. It's the Panama Canal. I'm not going to ruin it for you, but the Panama Canal kind of stole their thunder and kind of changed the whole topography of that city. With people moved out, different people moved in, but it's colorful, it's eclectic. There was music everywhere when we were there. It was lots of dogs barking everywhere. It was fun. It was alive. And then we had lunch at this beautiful restaurant right on the sea.
Yeah, exactly. And Valparaiso is known for those funiculars that go up the side of the hill. That's what they're, priming. You don't see any in the picture here, but these are some of the oldest, funiculars or elevators in the world.
I think the one we were in was like 1880 or something.
Yeah,
it's still going.
Great. And it's amazing to behold this technology. As you say, the fact that the Panama Canal came in changed life in these port cities of South America, but still such a colorful and vibrant place. And it's a hopping off point for some of the the bigger cruise ships that go around South America. But to go and experience it this way from overland, from in a day trip from Santiago, makes it really worthwhile. And that wraps up our trip. That's 2 weeks in the Andes, in Argentina. Chile is really takes in a lot, but at the same time with a lot of time to sort of explore and enjoy it on your own. From Chile this year, we had attempted to offer an Easter Island extension. I know a lot of our members ask about it. We had offered it, and then the airlines changed the dates that they were flying, and then the hotels weren't available because there's very limited accommodation in the Easter Islands. So, if you're traveling to that part of the world, it is something that can be arranged. And so we encourage you to take a look. We have opted not to offer it as an extension program just because we spend a lot of time spinning our wheels. So you have to have a little bit of a patience and plan a few extra days in order to be able to accommodate the ever-changing flight schedules. But that is something you could do. And some of our members went on as well to the north, to the Atacama Desert, which is one of the driest deserts in the world, in the northern part of Chile. So lots you can do, or of course you can fly from Santiago back to Toronto nonstop, or to connect to other cities in Canada. So this program next year, and I know that we've a number of people jump the gun and have already signed up before we've officially released it, will run from March 31 to April 13th. Here you can see the pricing in Canadian dollars. And that is for our whole ground program. Does include the airfare between Buenos Aires and Mendoza, so that's in, and of course transfers, accommodation. What would you say that our members felt about the value in terms of what they got for this program this year?
They were all quite impressed with it, especially with the meals as well, because we had quite extensive meals. The hotels were really, really nice. We had a great choice of hotels. I don't know if you picked them yourself, Gord, but well done. Those were really nice.
Well, we, the wheel and anchor ways. We like to make sure that our members are well fed.
And the hotel, they were perfect hotels. Like we stayed in the top one in Mendoza. They were all great hotels. Everybody raved about that. With the last one in Santiago was very charming. I don't know if you're using the same one again this year, so I'm not sure, but it was exceptional. Like people were like, this is a hit here. So yeah, and the value was great because of the hotels, and the meals were wonderful. We had beautiful guides that really knew what they were talking about. The transportation, all of the transfers are really, they're beautiful little, either little mini buses or Mercedes Sprinter vans. So it was always a really nice, we were riding in style and comfort. So yeah.
Perfect. And so the only thing that, as per usual, you have to arrange on your own or with our assistance, of course, would be the airfare from Canada to get down to Argentina and back from Chile, as well as your trip cancellation insurance. As I mentioned, the pre-program to Iguazu is in addition. The pricing here is including the airfare. It is excluding the airfare, excuse me. But we have a really nice hotel, which is why the price that it is, because if you're up there, you've got to stay on a lovely hotel in this beautiful town. And of course, it's your accommodation up there, your sightseeing with our local guides. And depending on how many people decide to join us for the extension program in Iguazu, it'll be hosted by our wheel and anchor host if we have more than 8 people signing up for that. So as I say, you just have to take care of the domestic flight, which is actually relatively inexpensive in Argentina. It's about $150 at last check. Yeah, of course, travel insurance.
I want to speak to one thing, Gord, because it was a bit of a just not confusion, but people going into the trip prior was the issue with the money in Argentina. Because they're facing crazy inflation, it's changing all the time. What we did was there was plenty of places to change the money safely. Our guides actually took us to them, the full bus of us, to each spot where we all changed our money. So it was something we asked our guides, immediately they fixed it and we got the best rates. So have no fear on that. Don't even try to worry about it until you get there. You're not going to get any of that money here anyway. Use US dollars until you can change it. But yeah, it was very simple, very easy process, super safe. There was no concern. Just don't do it on the street because you're in the open, but there's lots of change counters, change places. Like the guides took us to all the right places and we got the best rates. So don't have no fear about that. That you can get taken care of when you get there. So
basically what Todd is alluding to is the fact that Argentina's currency is there's a whole black market for the currency, but it's kind of a tolerated black market. And so it's been around forever. And it's just one of those tidbits of information that is good to know, and we will definitely cover again in the pre-trip information for those that decide to come along. So yeah, just give you a sense of airfare. We're hesitant to mention airfares these days because they sort of jump around all over the place. But at the moment, to South America, they are falling into the ranges that are shown here. But do give us a call if you're interested in that, because we can give you a real-time quote. And I'm delighted that we here as well have been able to work with our partners to work out an early booking bonus if we can get some members signed up earlier on. So if you sign up between now and the end of July, $500 off from the trip per person. So that's $1,000 off a couple. That makes a difference. And again, that's owing to us having negotiated with the hotels and so on a better deal if we can get members in and get deposits in and early. So do take advantage of that if you will. And it's almost time for questions and answers, and I'm sure there's some coming in. But of course, if something pops up in your mind that you haven't thought of, drop us a note. If we don't know the answer, or if Todd doesn't know the answer, we will get the answer for you right away. But Barb, are there any questions that have come in about the program?
Yeah, can you sort of go over the weather between Argentina and Chile and the different sort of regions you're covering at that time of year?
Do you want to summarize it? Because we are going in, obviously we're in the summer, we're in the southern hemisphere. So this is the fall.
Yeah, so your fall, beginning of fall there, right? So you're going to be probably looking about 25 degrees during the day in either Buenos Aires or Santiago. Like they're kind of similar. It's going to be somewhere in that zone, but as you go over the mountains, it is cooler. So it could be like, I don't know, a few degrees when you're up in the top at the very highest point, but that's only just while you're transiting through. So it's not even that you're staying in that area. So other than that, no, you're going to be looking about probably 20, 25 degrees, could be even a little warmer. It really depends. Weather changes all the time.
Iguazu is warmer because it's a tropical zone. So Iguazu will be getting up into the high 20s and 30 degrees.
Okay. Yeah, it was good though. It was tempered when we were there. It was a t-shirt weather, nothing crazy. We wore shorts, but it wasn't overly hot either. So you're on the shoulder season, which is the best time to go. It's not too hot, not too cold. Goldilocks.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, and then if people are, quite active on the free days, are they close to places where there's hiking, or hiking in terms of all levels, walking, hiking, whatever, in those regions at all?
Well, Buenos Aires is pretty flat, so it's not really hikey. There's not a lot. Santiago, you are closer to the mountains, but you need to get there somehow. There is the center hills, like the hills in Santiago, that you could hike. There are trails and everything. That's doable. The hotel that we stayed at in Santiago was very close to that. We just crossed the river and you're able to go up. So Yeah, there is hiking there, but if you want to get into the mountains proper, you're probably going to need to take some sort of trip out to there to do the proper hikes in the mountains there.
Right. Yeah. Occasionally we get asked, you know, that for people who are looking for something outside of what the program actually
Mhm.
has.
And there may be like even little hiking tours, like day tours or something.
Yeah.
like
Yeah. They can book it in town, probably.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And just wondering for the sort of winery experience, if people don't drink, is there non-alcoholic options for them?
They did, one of them offered tastings of different teas, actually. They were
Okay.
doing a tea tasting.
Yeah.
And there was another one that offered, it's escaping me now, but they do have options. So if you don't drink, you're not obligated to do it. But it is interesting to see the production. These facilities are quite something, and the science behind all of that. So if you don't drink, it's still quite interesting to see how they do it.
Yeah, the wineries are usually beautiful anyways, right? Just to go and for the scenic side
Exactly.
of it.
Yeah.
And just one other question in terms of the windy road. If
Yeah.
people are concerned about motion sickness at all, is that a no-go? Is there solutions
No,
or?
it's absolutely, so I totally have motion sickness. I have issues with it all the
Okay.
time. They go down that hill so slowly
Mhm.
that it's irrelevant. I took
Okay.
a gravel, ginger gravel, the non-drowsy one. I felt nothing, and it was because you have to go slow. You can't go fast on that thing, so it just, you're meandering down. It's not. It was nothing. And maybe the altitude height might be something people might consider more
Okay.
so than the actual motion sickness, because it wasn't very fast at all. So
Okay, that's good to know. Thank
right.
you.
Yeah.
I think that's the main questions that have come in, but people are
Oh, one
definitely reach
here
out to.
about using credit cards.
Yeah, we use
and
credit
so-
cards. We use Wise down there. It worked.
Credit cards, for sure. The point is to Todd's earlier comment about Argentina. If you use a credit card, you will get exchanged from Argentinian pesos to Canadian dollars at the official rate, which is much worse than the black market rate.
Yeah.
So you can use them and you can withdraw money, but particularly in Argentina, this is one of the places in the world where I say, actually, you don't want to do that. This is where you want to use US dollars cash because you get a significant discount to the official rates.
It's almost
Chile,
half. It's like literally almost half. So
Chile, on the other hand, credit cards, no problem. Everything's official. So no problem.
okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. And
All
then
right.
also we do, if people contact us, we'll send the additional information document. So please reach out. If you're at all interested, it goes into several different things in regards to these extra questions, currency, weather, all that sort of stuff. So we can definitely send that information out to people.
Perfect. Yep. Do
This
take
is
a look.
this is a very easy trip. It's not a difficult one at all. Like, it's not strenuous. It's actually just really enjoyable. You just actually walk into every day with a different experience, and it's very, very calm, very relaxing. It was one of the trips that I actually came back relaxed from, which usually there's a little bit more go. And it was
But you're the
simply one of the more gentle, sweeter, easier ways to travel was this trip. Like, this itinerary is just, it's lovely. So I would recommend this wholeheartedly. And I never really ever thought about going there. So for me, it was amazing.
Great. Thank you for that. Thanks, Todd, for your
Right.
insights on the trip. Much appreciated.
All
Thank
right.
you, Barb, once again. If you have any questions, do drop us an email. Otherwise, I hope to see you on our next webinar. Next week, we've got Norway and New Zealand coming up, and a whole bunch more programs that are in store. We've got a whole pack of them that are about to be released imminently. So stay tuned for that. You'll see me in this week's newsletter on Saturday. Thanks for joining us, and have yourselves a great rest of the day.